Most people think they understand human behavior. They think they know why people act the way they do, why conversations succeed or fail, why some people command respect while others are ignored. But what if I told you that most of what drives human behavior happens far below awareness, and that not seeing it is the reason people struggle socially without knowing why? Every awkward silence, every moment you felt underestimated, every time someone had power over the room without saying much at all. None of it was accidental. Human beings are governed by invisible psychological forces, signals of safety, threat, status, and belonging constantly exchanged beneath words. And unless you learn to recognize these forces, you will react to them unconsciously, while others quietly influence the outcome. Social intelligence is not about talking more. It is not about charm. And it is not about manipulation. It is about perception. When you understand how the social brain works, you stop taking behavior personally. You stop reacting emotionally. You begin to see patterns instead of problems. And from that clarity, your presence changes. You speak less, yet your words carry more weight. You move more slowly, yet people follow your lead. You stop forcing connection, and connection begins to happen naturally. This audiobook is a journey into the psychology beneath human interaction. You will learn why people fear rejection more than pain, how emotions spread silently between nervous systems, why true status is quiet, and how influence emerges from calm rather than pressure. As you listen, something subtle will shift. Your awareness will sharpen. Your reactions will soften. Your understanding of people, including yourself, will deepen. And once you see what is really happening beneath the surface of human behavior, you are no longer controlled by it. Tonight, that awareness begins. Most people believe they are in control of their social behavior. They think they choose how to respond, what to say, and how to act around others. But the truth is far more subtle and far more powerful once you understand it. Long before your conscious mind forms a thought, your social brain has already reacted. Every interaction you enter is filtered through ancient neural systems designed not for logic or truth, but for survival. These systems evolved when belonging to a group meant safety, and exclusion meant danger. Although the world has changed, the wiring has not. This is why social situations can feel intense even when nothing is wrong. Why your body tightens before your mind understands why. Why your voice changes under pressure. Why you replay conversations long after they end. You are not choosing these reactions. They are happening automatically. At the center of this process is the social brain, a network of neural circuits that continuously scans for signals of safety, threat, status, and belonging. It operates below awareness, interpreting posture, tone, facial expression, and emotional energy faster than conscious thought ever could. Within seconds of meeting someone, your brain silently asks questions you never hear out loud. Am I safe here? Do I belong? Is my status threatened? Should I approach or withdraw? Your body answers before your mind does. If safety feels uncertain, your nervous system prepares for defense. Muscles tense, breathing shortens, attention narrows, thinking becomes rigid. You may speak faster, hesitate, over-explain, or retreat into silence. None of this is a personal failure. It is a biological response. This is why intelligence alone does not create social ease. You can be thoughtful, knowledgeable, and well-intentioned and still feel awkward, anxious, or unseen, because the part of you that governs social behavior is not rational. It is protective. Most people spend their lives reacting from this place without realizing it. They mistake neurological responses for personality traits. They label themselves shy, awkward, overly sensitive, or socially weak. But these labels miss the truth. You are not reacting to people. You are reacting to perceived safety. Once you understand this, something important shifts. You stop judging yourself for responses that were never consciously chosen. Awareness begins to interrupt automation. And when awareness enters the system, choice becomes possible. Socially intelligent people are not immune to these reactions. Their brains scan for safety just like everyone else's. The difference is that they recognize what is happening internally, instead of being controlled by it. They notice tension without becoming it. They feel anxiety without obeying it. They observe fear without letting it drive behavior. This ability changes everything. When you can witness your internal state instead of identifying with it, the nervous system begins to settle. Breath deepens. Muscles soften. Attention widens. The higher regions of the brain responsible for empathy, reasoning, and emotional regulation come back online. You move from reaction to response. This is why regulation is the foundation of social intelligence. Before you try to influence anyone, before you try to communicate clearly, before you try to connect, your nervous system must feel safe. Safety is not something you demand from others. It is something you create within yourself. This does not require forcing calm or suppressing emotion. Suppression creates tension, and tension is always visible. Regulation is gentler. It begins with awareness. You notice your breath. You feel your feet on the ground. You soften your shoulders. You allow sensations to exist without resisting them. These small shifts send a powerful signal back to the brain, I am not in danger. When the brain receives this signal, your entire experience changes. You listen more fully. You speak more deliberately. You stop rushing to fill silence. You become present rather than performative. Others feel this shift immediately. Human nervous systems synchronize. When one person is regulated, it becomes easier for others to regulate as well. Conversations slow. Tension decreases. Misunderstandings soften. You do not need to control the interaction. Your presence shapes it. This is the quiet advantage of social intelligence. Most people attempt to manage social situations from the outside, choosing words carefully, rehearsing responses, adjusting behavior to gain approval. But socially intelligent people work from the inside out. They regulate first. They observe second. They speak last. They do not chase acceptance. They create safety. This is why their presence feels grounding. Why people listen to them. Why they are trusted without demanding it. Their behavior is not driven by fear of rejection, so it does not transmit fear to others. As you continue listening, you may begin to recognize these patterns in your own life. Moments where tension appeared before thought. Situations where you adapted yourself without realizing it. Times when your body reacted long before your mind understood why. This awareness is not meant to create self-criticism. It is meant to create freedom. Because once you see that your social brain has been running the show, you no longer have to fight it. You can work with it. You can regulate it. You can lead it. And from that place, social intelligence stops being something you try to do and becomes something you naturally embody. This is where the journey begins. There is a reason social rejection can hurt more deeply than physical pain. A reason, a single cold glance, an unanswered message, or a dismissive tone can echo in your mind long after the moment has passed. The human brain does not treat rejection as a minor inconvenience. It treats it as danger. This reaction is not emotional weakness. It is ancient survival wiring. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging. To be part of the group meant access to food, protection, and shared resources. To be rejected meant isolation, vulnerability, and often death. Over thousands of generations, the brain evolved to prioritize social safety with extraordinary intensity. That wiring still lives inside you. When you sense exclusion, judgment, or disapproval, your brain activates the same threat circuits it would use for physical danger. Stress hormones surge. Your heart rate changes. Your muscles tense. Your attention narrows. Thinking becomes rigid and defensive. This happens instantly before logic, before reflection, before choice. This is why rejection can feel overwhelming even when the stakes are objectively low. Your nervous system is responding to an ancient signal, not a modern situation. It is reacting to perceived loss of belonging, not to reason. Understanding this changes how you see yourself. You stop asking, "Why am I so affected by this?" and start recognizing, "My brain is protecting me." The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, plays a central role in this process. It scans constantly for social danger, signs of exclusion, loss of status, or emotional distance. When it detects a threat, it activates the body's fight or flight response. But social threats are rarely resolved through fighting or fleeing. Instead, people adapt. They become quieter to avoid attention. They become louder to regain relevance. They agree when they want to resist. They apologize when they have done nothing wrong. They perform versions of themselves that feel safer than being authentic. These behaviors are not strategies. They are survival responses. Most people never realize this. They believe they are making rational social choices, when, in reality, their nervous system is steering behavior behind the scenes. Over time, these adaptations become habits. Habits become identity, and identity becomes a cage. This is how fear of rejection silently shapes entire lives. It influences career decisions. It limits self-expression. It keeps relationships shallow. It prevents honest conflict. People avoid speaking up not because they lack ideas, but because rejection feels too costly. They stay in unfulfilling roles not because they are incapable of change, but because the nervous system prefers familiar discomfort over social risk. Social intelligence begins with seeing this clearly. When you understand that fear of rejection is neurological rather than personal, you stop fighting yourself. You stop trying to be more confident through force. Confidence does not emerge from pressure. It emerges from safety. Safety allows choice. When the nervous system feels safe, the brain's higher regions regain control. Empathy returns. Creativity opens. Perspective widens. You are no longer trapped in threat mode. This is why calm presence is more powerful than assertiveness. Why grounded silence often carries more authority than loud certainty. Why people who do not chase approval are often the most respected. They are not fearless. They are regulated. Socially intelligent people understand that fear of rejection exists, and they no longer obey it. They notice the sensations when rejection feels possible. Tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, a rush of urgency. But instead of acting from these sensations, they pause, they breathe, they ground. They allow the feeling to pass without interpreting it as a command. This pause is everything. In that space, fear loses its authority. It becomes information rather than instruction. You may still feel discomfort, but you are no longer controlled by it. This changes how you show up. You speak more honestly, not because you want to provoke, but because you no longer need to protect a fragile image. You tolerate silence without filling it. You allow others to disagree without rushing to defend yourself. Ironically, this often leads to greater acceptance. People feel safer around those who are not seeking validation. They trust those who do not shapeshift to avoid discomfort. Authentic presence creates resonance, and resonance creates connection. Rejection also changes meaning when you understand it correctly. It is not a verdict on your worth. It is a signal of mismatch, timing, or unresolved fear, often in the other person. When someone rejects, withdraws, or reacts defensively, their nervous system is often protecting something: status, identity, emotional safety. It is rarely about you as a person. Seeing this allows compassion without self-abandonment. You no longer chase those who withdraw. You no longer personalize distance. You no longer contort yourself to earn approval. You remain grounded. This does not mean rejection disappears. It means its power diminishes. You stop organizing your behavior around avoiding it. And when fear no longer dictates your actions, something subtle but profound happens. Your presence changes. You become steadier. Your voice softens. Your body relaxes. Your attention becomes outward rather than self-protective. Others feel this immediately. They sense that you are not trying to get something from them. You are simply there. This absence of pressure is rare and deeply attractive. Social intelligence is not about eliminating fear of rejection. It is about understanding it so thoroughly that it no longer controls you. As this understanding settles in, you may notice old patterns loosening. Moments where you would have stayed silent begin to feel less threatening. Situations that once triggered anxiety begin to feel manageable. You realize that rejection, while uncomfortable, is not dangerous. And that realization restores freedom. Because when you are no longer organized around fear, you begin to move through the world with a different kind of confidence, quiet, grounded, and unmistakably real. Even when you say nothing, you are influencing everyone around you. Before a single word is spoken, your emotional state is already shaping the interaction. Your breathing, posture, facial tension, and internal rhythm send signals that other nervous systems detect instantly. This process happens automatically, beneath awareness, and it happens all the time. This is known as emotional contagion. Human beings are wired to synchronize with one another, long before language evolved. Survival depended on reading the emotional states of others quickly and accurately. A calm group meant safety. A tense group meant danger. That sensitivity still lives inside you. This is why emotions spread so easily. Why anxiety enters a room and everyone feels it. Why one calm presence can soften an entire space. Why certain people drain you, while others ground you. Emotions are not private experiences. They are social signals. Most people believe they are reacting to situations. In reality, they are often reacting to the emotional states of others, absorbing tension, urgency, or fear without realizing it. This is why crowded places feel overwhelming, why certain conversations exhaust you, and why being around emotionally regulated people feels relieving. Your nervous system is constantly listening. Mirror neurons in the brain automatically reflect the emotional tone of those around you. When someone nearby is stressed, your body subtly tightens. When someone is relaxed, your breath slows naturally. This mirroring happens before thought, before intention. You do not choose it, but you can become aware of it. Social intelligence begins with recognizing that you are always broadcasting something and always receiving something in return. The question is not whether you influence the emotional environment. The question is how. When you are internally rushed, others feel pressured. When you are guarded, others become cautious. When you are calm, others relax. This is why influence begins with regulation. You cannot calm a situation if your own nervous system is activated. You cannot create clarity if your internal state is chaotic. And you cannot lead emotionally if you are unconsciously absorbing every signal around you. Socially intelligent people understand this deeply. They do not try to control emotions, theirs or others. They focus on stability. They notice when they are absorbing tension that does not belong to them. They pause before reacting. They ground themselves internally before engaging. This creates a powerful shift. When you regulate your own emotional state, you stop amplifying what you encounter. You become a stabilizing presence rather than a reactive one. Others feel this immediately, even if they cannot explain why. This is emotional leadership. It does not require authority or status. It requires awareness. When you enter a space grounded, breathing steadily, moving calmly, you subtly signal safety. Other nervous systems respond. Conversations slow. Resistance softens. People become more open. This is not manipulation. It is biological communication. Your presence speaks louder than your words ever could. Most people attempt to influence from the outside. They argue. They persuade. They explain. But emotionally intelligent influence happens from the inside out. It begins with self-regulation, not strategy. When you are calm, you create space. When you create space, people feel seen. When people feel seen, they listen. Emotional contagion also explains why boundaries matter. When you are unaware, you absorb emotions indiscriminately. Stress becomes yours. Anger becomes yours. Urgency becomes yours. Over time, this creates exhaustion and confusion. Awareness creates distance. You begin to notice when your emotional state changes suddenly. You ask yourself, did this originate in me? You breathe. You ground. You choose not to carry what is not yours. This is not detachment. It is discernment. Social intelligence is not about being open to everything. It is about being selectively open. You remain empathetic without being overwhelmed, present without being pulled. As this skill develops, something subtle changes. You stop matching the emotional intensity of others. You stop escalating when others escalate. You stop collapsing when others are tense. You remain steady. This steadiness becomes your signature. People begin to feel calmer around you. Conversations feel less urgent. Conflicts feel more manageable. You become someone others trust. Not because you solve everything, but because your presence reduces noise. This is why the most influential people often appear relaxed rather than intense. Their power does not come from emotional force. It comes from emotional clarity. As you continue listening, you may notice yourself becoming more sensitive, not overwhelmed, but aware. You may sense emotional shifts earlier. You may feel less compelled to react immediately. You may find yourself breathing more deeply without trying. These are signs that your nervous system is learning a new pattern. You are no longer just participating in emotional contagion. You are shaping it. And when you understand that you are always broadcasting, you begin to choose the signal you send, not through effort, but through alignment. Calm becomes contagious. Clarity becomes contagious. Presence becomes contagious. This is the quiet power of emotional intelligence. And from this place, social mastery begins to feel natural, not because you are doing more, but because you are finally doing less. Most people misunderstand status. They believe it comes from visibility, dominance, or the ability to control attention. They think power belongs to the loudest voice, the most confident speaker, the one who takes up the most space. But real status operates very differently and much more quietly. Status is not announced. It is sensed. The human nervous system constantly evaluates hierarchy, often without conscious awareness. It reads posture, pacing, eye contact, vocal tone, and emotional steadiness. These signals are processed faster than words and shape how people orient themselves in social spaces. Before anyone decides who to listen to, their nervous system has already chosen. High-status presence does not rush. It does not explain itself excessively. It does not compete for attention. It rests. Low-status behavior is rarely about incompetence. It is usually about uncertainty. When people feel unsure of their position, they compensate. They speak faster. They fill silence. They justify themselves. They seek validation before expressing opinions. None of this is intentional. It is the nervous system trying to secure safety through approval. Understanding this removes judgment. You stop seeing dominance as confidence. You stop seeing silence as weakness. You begin reading behavior as regulation or dysregulation. Status is not about taking power from others. It is about being comfortable with your own presence. The most reliable signal of high status is emotional stability under pressure. When tension rises, people instinctively look for someone who remains steady. Calm communicates capacity. Slowness communicates control. Stillness communicates certainty. This is why, in moments of uncertainty, people orient toward the person who speaks last, not first. The one who pauses before responding. The one whose body language remains relaxed while others become reactive. Silence, when held with ease, increases authority. Most people fear silence because it exposes internal discomfort. They rush to fill it to regain a sense of control. But silence is not emptiness. It is space. And space allows presence to expand. Socially intelligent people are comfortable in that space. They do not rush to prove relevance. They trust that their presence alone is sufficient. This trust is felt. Status also emerges through coherence. When your internal state aligns with your external behavior, your signals become clear. Your words, tone, posture, and pacing tell the same story. There is no contradiction between what you feel and how you present yourself. This coherence cannot be faked. When someone tries to act confident without internal regulation, their body betrays them. Their gestures become forced. Their voice tightens. Their energy feels brittle. Others sense this immediately, even if they cannot articulate it. True status is relaxed because it is not trying to be anything. Another misunderstood aspect of status is leadership. Leadership does not require command. It requires containment. The ability to hold emotional intensity without becoming reactive. The ability to slow a moment rather than escalate it. When you remain grounded, others unconsciously adjust to your pace. Conversations slow. Interruptions decrease. Attention organizes itself around you. This is not manipulation. It is regulation. People follow those who feel safe to follow. High-status individuals do not seek agreement. They allow disagreement without losing composure. This signals internal security. When you do not collapse or attack in the face of opposition, you communicate strength more clearly than any assertion ever could. You are not threatened. You are not rushed. You are not trying to win. This creates respect. Status is also influenced by boundaries, not rigid walls, but clear limits. High-status people do not overextend themselves emotionally. They do not chase connection. They allow relationships to develop naturally. They know when to engage and when to step back. This selectivity signals self-respect, and self-respect invites respect from others. Social intelligence teaches you that you do not need to dominate space to be felt. You only need to be grounded within it. As you internalize this understanding, your behavior begins to shift naturally. You speak less, but with more intention. You move more slowly. You become more comfortable with pauses. You stop explaining what does not need explanation. These changes are not techniques. They are byproducts of regulation. People begin responding differently to you, not because you demand authority, but because your presence feels composed, predictable, safe. This is why the quietest person often leads the room. They are not silent out of fear. They are silent out of clarity. They listen more than they speak. They respond rather than react. They allow others to reveal themselves without interruption. And in doing so, they gain information, influence, and respect. Status, when understood correctly, is not something you pursue. It is something that emerges when you stop fighting for position and start embodying stability. As this chapter settles into you, you may notice a subtle internal shift. Less urgency, less need to be seen, more comfort in simply being present. This is not withdrawal. It is confidence reorganizing itself. Because when you no longer confuse noise with power, you begin to experience a different kind of strength, one that does not compete, does not impress, and does not demand. It simply holds. And in a world driven by urgency and reaction, that calm certainty becomes unmistakable. Social intelligence is often mistaken for talent. Some believe you either have it or you don't. Others assume it is about being charismatic, charming, or naturally confident. But social intelligence is not a trait you are born with. It is a structure you build from the inside out. At its foundation, social intelligence rests on 4 interconnected pillars. When these pillars are aligned, interaction becomes effortless. When one is weak, tension appears. When several are missing, social life feels exhausting. The first pillar is awareness. Awareness is the ability to perceive what is happening beneath the surface. Not just what people say, but how they say it. Not just actions, but the emotional currents driving those actions. Awareness begins when your attention moves outward instead of looping inward. Most people enter conversations focused on themselves, how they are being perceived, what they should say next, whether they are being judged. This self-monitoring narrows perception. You miss subtle cues. You overlook shifts in tone, energy, and engagement. Socially intelligent people listen differently. Their attention is relaxed and receptive. They notice when someone's energy changes mid-sentence. They sense hesitation before disagreement becomes visible. They feel when curiosity opens and when resistance forms. This awareness is not analytical. It is intuitive. It comes from presence. And presence is only possible when you are not consumed by internal noise. The second pillar is self-management. Awareness without regulation creates overload. You may perceive everything, but feel overwhelmed by it. Self-management is the ability to remain internally steady while engaging with others. This does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression tightens the body and leaks through behavior. Self-management means allowing emotion to exist without letting it dictate your response. When irritation arises, you notice it. When anxiety appears, you breathe with it. When defensiveness activates, you pause. This pause changes the trajectory of interaction. Most social breakdowns happen because emotions are acted out unconsciously. A tense tone invites tension. A defensive response invites escalation. A rushed reaction invites misunderstanding. Regulation interrupts this cycle. When you manage your internal state, your external signals soften. Your voice steadies. Your posture relaxes. Others feel this immediately. They may not know why the conversation feels easier, they only know that it does. The third pillar is influence. Influence is often misunderstood as persuasion or control. But true influence is not about pushing ideas. It is about shaping emotional context. People rarely change their minds because of facts alone. They change when they feel safe enough to consider new perspectives. Influence emerges when trust is present, when clarity replaces urgency, and when respect replaces pressure. Socially intelligent influence begins with listening. When people feel heard, their defenses lower. When defenses lower, openness increases. From that openness, ideas can land. Influence also requires coherence. When your words align with your tone, and your tone aligns with your body language, people sense integrity. They trust what you say because it feels consistent. This is why influence cannot be forced. Forced influence creates resistance. Ethical influence invites choice. You do not corner. You do not rush. You do not manipulate. You frame ideas in ways that honor autonomy. You allow others to arrive at conclusions without pressure. This creates commitment rather than compliance. The fourth pillar is relationship architecture. Every interaction leaves a trace. Over time, these traces form patterns, expectations, emotional memory, and trust levels. Relationship architecture is the ability to shape these patterns intentionally. Socially intelligent people understand pacing. They do not overshare too quickly. They do not withdraw prematurely. They allow connection to deepen naturally. They know that trust is built through consistency, not intensity. Showing up reliably matters more than grand gestures. Respecting boundaries matters more than forced closeness. They also recognize when relationships need space. Distance is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes it is necessary for recalibration. Social intelligence allows you to sense when to engage and when to step back. These four pillars do not exist independently. Awareness informs self-management. Self-management enables influence. Influence strengthens relationships. Relationships deepen awareness. Together, they form a stable internal framework. When these pillars are aligned, you no longer need to perform socially. You stop trying to impress. You stop adjusting yourself to fit imagined expectations. You become consistent, the same calm presence across situations. This consistency is what others trust. Social intelligence, at its highest level, is not about doing more. It is about removing interference. When fear quiets, awareness expands. When urgency fades, clarity emerges. When you stop chasing approval, connection deepens. As you continue listening, you may notice these pillars organizing themselves naturally. You may feel more observant without effort, more regulated without force, more influential without intention. This is not because you are learning techniques. It is because understanding is replacing reactivity. And when understanding settles into the body, behavior follows effortlessly. This is the architecture of social intelligence, not something you display, but something you inhabit. Most people believe that if someone doesn't say something, then nothing is happening. They trust words more than silence, explanations more than pauses, smiles more than subtle shifts. But human emotion does not wait for language. It leaks. Before a sentence finishes forming, before logic steps in to organize meaning, the body reacts. A tightening around the eyes, a brief pull of the mouth, a flicker of tension across the face that lasts less than a heartbeat. Too fast to control, too honest to fake. This is not something you analyze. It is something you begin to feel. You've experienced this before, even if you didn't name it. A moment when someone said, "I'm fine," but something inside you knew they weren't. A conversation where the words sounded agreeable, yet the atmosphere felt heavy. A smile that appeared on time, but didn't arrive in the eyes. You felt the truth before you heard it. Micro-expressions are not secrets. People are hiding from you. They are signals the nervous system releases before the mind can intervene. They reveal emotional states, not intentions. And this distinction is crucial. Seeing a flash of fear does not mean rejection. Noticing tension does not mean hostility. Sensing sadness does not mean weakness. It means the nervous system is processing something in real time. Socially unintelligent people react to these signals. They confront them. They push. They correct. They rush to resolve what they barely understand. This often creates resistance, because it ignores what the other person is actually experiencing beneath the surface. Socially intelligent people do the opposite. They slow down. When they sense hesitation, they don't push forward. When they feel discomfort, they soften their presence. When something feels unresolved, they allow space. This feels intuitive to others, not invasive, not analytical, just human. The mistake most people make is trying to read faces like puzzles. They want certainty, labels, clear conclusions. But emotional truth is rarely clean or singular. It is layered, contextual, fluid. The face does not lie, but it also does not explain itself. This is why social intelligence is not about decoding people. It is about listening beneath words without demanding clarity too soon. When you are present and regulated, your perception sharpens naturally. You stop looking at people and start feeling with them. And when you feel, you notice patterns. You notice when someone's expression shifts briefly before they agree. You notice when enthusiasm fades for a fraction of a second. You notice when calm is performed. But tension lingers underneath. You don't call it out. You don't expose it. You respect it. This respect is felt. People relax around those who do not force emotional exposure. They feel safe with those who sense discomfort without exploiting it. Trust deepens, not because you know more, but because you move gently. There is also a mirror here. As you become more sensitive to others, you begin to notice your own micro-expressions. The subtle tightening in your jaw when you feel judged. The quick smile you use to mask uncertainty. The slight narrowing of your eyes when you feel threatened. This awareness is not meant to create self-consciousness. It creates choice. When you notice tension forming in your face, you can soften it. When you feel your body brace, you can breathe. When you sense yourself withdrawing, you can stay present. Alignment begins here. When your internal state and external signals match, others feel clarity. They don't have to guess what you mean. They don't feel mixed messages. Your presence becomes easy to trust. This is why people feel comfortable around certain individuals without knowing why. It's not because those people say the right things. It's because their emotional signals are congruent. Nothing hidden, nothing forced, nothing rushed. Seeing what others hide is not about gaining advantage. It is about reducing friction. When you honor unspoken emotion, conversations flow more naturally. Resistance dissolves without confrontation. People open when they feel understood, not analyzed. This ability grows quietly. You don't wake up one day suddenly reading everyone. Instead, you find yourself pausing more often, listening longer, responding later. You begin to feel when a conversation needs silence instead of advice, space instead of progress. And in that stillness, clarity emerges. As you continue listening, this sensitivity will deepen, not as hyper-awareness, but as calm attunement. You will start noticing emotional truth without effort. You won't need to name it. You'll simply adjust. And that adjustment, subtle, respectful, human, is what makes social intelligence feel effortless. Because when you see what others hide, you no longer push. And when you stop pushing, connection becomes natural. Before you speak, you are already being heard. Before you move, you are already being read. Before you act, you are already sending a signal. Human beings do not first listen with their ears. They listen with their nervous system. And the nervous system does not analyze words. It responds to tone, rhythm, posture, and presence long before meaning is processed. This is why communication often fails, even when the words themselves are correct. Two people can say the same sentence, using the same language, and create completely different reactions. One feels calming, the other feels unsettling. One creates openness, the other creates resistance. The difference is not intelligence, intention, or vocabulary. The difference is signal. Your voice is not just sound. It is a direct reflection of your inner state. When you are tense, your voice tightens. When you are uncertain, it subtly rises in pitch. When you are rushed, it accelerates without permission. People may not consciously register these changes, but they feel them immediately. A hurried voice creates pressure. A tight voice creates defensiveness. A grounded voice creates safety. This is why social intelligence does not begin with learning how to speak. It begins with learning how to settle. When your breathing slows, your voice follows. When your chest relaxes, your tone softens. When there is nothing inside you trying to protect itself, your voice naturally becomes steady, warm, and clear. You do not need to perform confidence. Confidence appears when there is no internal conflict. The body speaks even louder than the voice. Your posture, your gestures, and your pace of movement transmit information long before words arrive. An aligned body does not collapse inward, and it does not puff itself up. It rests in balance. A relaxed spine, open shoulders, unhurried movement. These are not techniques. They are consequences of regulation. When the body is tense, others feel guarded. When movements are frantic, others feel pressured. When the body is grounded, others relax. Most people try to manage these signals from the outside. They remind themselves to stand straight, gesture confidently, or project authority. But the nervous system cannot be fooled for long. If the inside is chaotic, the outside will leak it. Alignment always moves from inside to outside. This is where presence begins. Presence is not charisma. It is not intensity. It is not trying to be impressive. Presence is what remains when effort disappears. When your thoughts, emotions, breath, and body move together, your energy becomes coherent. Others feel this coherence immediately. Conversations slow. Interruptions decrease. Attention organizes itself around you. Stability is rare. Most people are broadcasting urgency, self-consciousness, or hidden tension without realizing it. They speak to be accepted. They move to avoid judgment. They fill silence to escape discomfort. Socially intelligent people are comfortable with stillness. Silence does not threaten them. It gives them space. Silence held with calm is one of the strongest social signals you can send. When you are aligned, silence feels intentional rather than awkward. It allows meaning to land. It gives others room to think and respond honestly. This is why the quietest person in the room often feels the most powerful. Not because they are withholding, but because they are not leaking. The voice, the body, and presence are not separate skills. They are expressions of the same internal condition. When one shifts, the others follow. When you regulate internally, your external signal becomes trustworthy. Trust is built through consistency. When your words match your tone matches your posture, and your posture matches your emotional state. Others stop guessing. People feel comfortable around those whose signals are clear. They do not need to scan for threat. Their nervous system relaxes. This is why some people feel grounding without saying much at all. It is not what they say. It is how little friction they create. As this understanding deepens, you may notice subtle changes in yourself. You speak less, but with more weight. You move more slowly, without hesitation. You stop rushing to prove you belong. You already do. You also become more aware of moments when alignment slips. When your jaw tightens under pressure. When your shoulders rise unconsciously. When your voice speeds up to fill space. This awareness is not meant to create self-judgment. It creates choice. You can pause. You can breathe. You can soften. And when you soften, your signal changes. Social intelligence at this level is not about controlling perception. It is about removing interference. When urgency dissolves, presence emerges. When tension releases, clarity appears. You stop trying to influence. And influence begins to happen naturally. Because people do not respond to what you say. They respond to what you transmit. And the most powerful signal you can ever send is not dominance, not speed, not volume. It is calm clarity. Most people believe influence comes from effort, from convincing, persuading, explaining, or pushing an idea until it finally breaks through resistance. But the deepest influence does not feel like influence at all. It feels like safety. Human beings do not open when they feel pressured. They open when their nervous system relaxes. They listen when they feel respected. They move when they feel understood. This is why influence that relies on force may work temporarily. But it always creates tension beneath the surface. True influence works quietly, before someone considers your words. Their nervous system asks a question. It never voices, "Do I feel safe with this person?" If the answer is no, defenses rise. Logic shuts down. Resistance forms. If the answer is yes, something softens. Curiosity appears. Openness becomes possible. This is the foundation of influence without forcing. Social intelligence teaches you that people are rarely persuaded by arguments. They are persuaded by emotional context. When the emotional environment feels safe, ideas land naturally. When it feels threatening, even the best ideas fail. This is why calm presence is more influential than intensity. When you are regulated, your body and voice send a signal of steadiness. You are not rushing toward an outcome. You are not trying to extract agreement. You are present. That presence lowers resistance before words are ever spoken. Ethical influence begins with giving rather than taking. When you offer attention without interruption, people feel valued. When you listen without preparing a counterpoint, people feel respected. When you share insight without expectation, people feel free. This activates a deep psychological principle balance. Human beings are wired to respond to generosity, not obligation, but balance. When someone gives without pressure, the nervous system naturally wants to reciprocate, not because it is told to, but because it feels right. This is not manipulation. It is alignment. Influence that respects autonomy does not corner people. It creates space. Space to think. Space to choose. Space to arrive at conclusions on their own. When people feel they are choosing freely, commitment becomes deeper and more stable. Another element of influence is social proof, but not the kind measured in numbers or popularity. True social proof is emotional. It is the sense that people like me feel safe here, when others appear relaxed, open, and engaged. Resistance dissolves naturally. This is why environments matter. A calm group invites participation. A tense group invites caution. Socially intelligent people understand this and do not rush against the emotional current. They work with it. Authority also plays a role in influence, but not the kind that demands obedience. Genuine authority emerges from consistency, clarity, and competence. People follow those who feel grounded, capable, and emotionally stable, not those who need to assert power. Forced authority creates distance. Embodied authority creates trust. The most influential individuals do not argue to be right. They listen to understand. They ask questions that clarify rather than corner. They frame ideas in ways that invite reflection rather than resistance. They leave room for disagreement, room for uncertainty, room for choice. This room is essential. When people feel trapped, they resist. When they feel free, they engage. Influence without forcing always preserves dignity. This does not mean passivity. It means precision. Socially intelligent influence is deliberate but gentle. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent. It senses when an idea needs time rather than pressure. It respects the rhythm of human change. Change rarely happens in moments of intensity. It happens in moments of safety. As you integrate this understanding, your approach begins to shift. You stop trying to convince. You stop chasing outcomes. You stop measuring success by immediate agreement. Instead, you focus on creating conditions where alignment can occur. Your presence becomes the invitation. Your clarity becomes the guide. Your steadiness becomes the anchor. People may not agree immediately. That is not failure. Influence that lasts unfolds over time. Seeds are planted. Perspectives soften. Resistance loosens quietly. This is why ethical influence feels slower and yet goes deeper. When people change because they felt pressured, resentment remains. When they change because they felt safe, transformation lasts. Influence without forcing also protects you. You are no longer responsible for controlling outcomes. You show up fully, clearly, and respectfully, and you allow others to choose. This removes the burden of performance and restores integrity. You do not need to persuade. You do not need to dominate. You do not need to convince. You need to be clear, regulated, and present. As this chapter settles in, you may notice yourself speaking less urgently, listening more patiently, allowing silence where you once rushed to fill it. These shifts are not strategies. They are signs that you no longer fear resistance. Because when you are no longer afraid of resistance, you stop forcing. And when you stop forcing, people begin to move toward you naturally. That is the quiet power of influence rooted in respect, not pressure, not manipulation, but alignment. Conflict is where social intelligence is revealed most clearly. Not in moments of ease, not when everyone agrees, but when tension enters the room, when emotions rise, when something feels threatened. Most people experience conflict as danger. Their nervous system reacts instantly. Muscles tighten, breathing shortens, the mind narrows. Words come faster, sharper, or disappear entirely. In those moments, intelligence does not vanish, it is simply overridden. Conflict itself is not the problem. The loss of regulation is. Human beings are wired to interpret disagreement as threat. When expectations collide, the nervous system prepares for defense. This preparation feels urgent, and urgency drives behavior. People interrupt. They justify. They attack. They withdraw. All of this happens before conscious choice has a chance to intervene. Social intelligence begins when you see this clearly. When tension appears, the socially unintelligent response is speed. Speak quickly. Explain more. Push harder. Correct immediately. These actions feel necessary because the nervous system is trying to regain control. But speed is exactly what escalates conflict. Socially intelligent people do something that feels counterintuitive. They slow down. Slowness signals safety. Slowness signals capacity. Slowness tells the nervous system, yours and theirs, that this moment is survivable. When you slow your breathing, your voice naturally lowers. When your voice lowers, emotional intensity decreases. When emotional intensity decreases, thinking returns. This sequence is biological, not psychological. Tone matters more than content during conflict. You can say the right words with the wrong tone and create resistance. You can say very little with a calm tone and create resolution. A rushed, high-pitched voice communicates anxiety or aggression, even if the message is reasonable. A steady, grounded tone communicates stability. This is why intelligent communicators focus less on being right and more on being regulated. They pause before responding. They allow silence to exist. They choose fewer words, not more. Silence here is not avoidance. It is containment. Silence gives emotions time to settle. It interrupts escalation. It creates space where clarity can return. Many conflicts dissolve not because they were solved, but because they were allowed to slow down. Another critical distinction is understanding what conflict actually represents. Conflict is rarely about the surface issue. It is about unmet needs, threatened identity, or perceived loss of control. Beneath anger is often fear. Beneath defensiveness is often vulnerability. Beneath resistance is often uncertainty. When you see conflict this way, your posture changes. You stop treating the other person as an opponent and start seeing information. This does not mean you agree. It means you understand what is being protected. Understanding lowers friction. Social intelligence does not require surrendering boundaries. It requires separating emotion from behavior. You can acknowledge what someone feels without validating harmful actions. You can remain firm without becoming rigid. This balance is subtle. I hear that this matters to you. I understand why you're frustrated. Let's slow this down. These responses regulate without submission. Conflict becomes destructive when both nervous systems are dysregulated. It becomes manageable when at least one person remains grounded. And the person who stays grounded naturally leads the interaction. Leadership in conflict is not dominance. It is restraint. Restraint is the ability to feel pressure without reacting impulsively. It is the ability to hold your position without attacking. It is the ability to stay present when others escalate. This presence changes how others experience you. People feel safer expressing disagreement. They feel less need to defend or attack. They become more open to resolution. This is why socially intelligent people are often trusted with difficult conversations. They do not add fuel to tension. They contain it. Another key aspect of conflict intelligence is timing. Not every issue needs to be resolved immediately. Pushing for closure when emotions are high often backfires. Socially intelligent people sense when a conversation needs pause rather than progress. They understand that clarity arrives when regulation returns. Walking away temporarily is not avoidance when done consciously. It is regulation. It allows the nervous system to reset so that dialogue can resume productively later. Conflict also reveals your relationship with control. Many conflicts escalate because someone feels their autonomy is threatened. When people feel cornered, they resist. When they feel respected, they soften. This is why forcing agreement almost always fails. Respect preserves dignity. You can disagree without diminishing. You can assert without attacking. You can hold boundaries without humiliation. These distinctions matter deeply to the nervous system. As you become more comfortable with tension, Your fear of conflict diminishes. You stop bracing for impact. You trust your ability to remain present. This trust reorganizes your behavior. You listen more fully. You react less. You speak with intention rather than impulse. Others feel this shift immediately. Conflict no longer defines the relationship. It refines it. Handled with intelligence, conflict becomes information rather than threat. It reveals where alignment is missing, where expectations differ, where communication needs adjustment. Instead of avoiding these signals, socially intelligent people learn from them. They do not seek conflict. They do not fear it. They respect it. As this chapter settles into you, you may notice something subtle. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Conversations that once triggered anxiety feel slower and more spacious. You no longer rush to defend your identity, because your identity is no longer fragile. When you understand that intelligence is not proven in calm moments but revealed under pressure, your relationship with conflict changes. You stop seeing it as a test you must pass and start seeing it as a moment you can hold. And when you can hold tension without collapsing or attacking, you gain a quiet authority that cannot be faked. Conflict stops being something you survive. It becomes something you navigate. This is social intelligence under pressure. Not loud, not reactive, but steady. And in a world driven by urgency and emotion, that steadiness becomes unmistakable. To become socially untouchable does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean withdrawing from people. And it does not mean controlling others. It means something far quieter and far more powerful. It means reaching a point where other people's reactions no longer destabilize you, where approval no longer elevates you, and disapproval no longer collapses you, where you can remain present, grounded, and clear regardless of the emotional weather around you. Most people believe strength is about influence, but untouchable strength is about independence of state. When you are socially untouchable, your inner balance is no longer hostage to external validation. Compliments do not inflate you. Criticism does not define you. Silence does not unsettle you. Tension does not rush you. This is not indifference. It is sovereignty. Throughout this audiobook, you have seen how human behavior is driven by unconscious forces: fear of rejection, emotional contagion, status signals, pressure under conflict. You have learned that most people are not acting freely. They are reacting. To be socially untouchable is to step out of that cycle. It begins with identity. When your sense of self is built on external feedback, you become fragile. Every interaction becomes a test. Every conversation becomes a performance. You adjust, adapt, and contort yourself to maintain safety. But when your identity is anchored internally, something shifts. You no longer need to be right to feel secure. You no longer need to be liked to feel worthy. You no longer need to dominate to feel powerful. You become steady. This steadiness changes how others experience you. People sense when someone is not seeking anything from them. No approval, no reassurance, no validation. That absence of need creates space, and space feels safe. Socially untouchable people are not closed. They are open without being exposed. They care without clinging. They engage without entangling. This balance is rare. Another aspect of untouchability is emotional containment. Most people leak emotion, anxiety, urgency, resentment, frustration. It spills into their tone, posture, and decisions. They do not choose this. Their nervous system does. But when you learn to regulate internally, emotion becomes contained rather than contagious. You feel deeply, but you do not broadcast instability. You experience emotion without letting it run the interaction. This containment is felt as maturity. People trust those who can hold emotion without being overtaken by it. They feel safe with those who do not escalate, dramatize, or withdraw under pressure. Safety, again, becomes the foundation. Untouchability also changes how you relate to power. You stop competing for status. You stop measuring yourself against others. You stop entering invisible hierarchies. Not because you are above them, but because you are no longer organized around them. This does not make you passive. It makes you selective. You choose where to invest energy. You choose which conversations matter. You choose which dynamics you participate in. You are no longer pulled into emotional games. Games rely on reaction. Untouchability dissolves them. When someone provokes, you pause. When someone withdraws, you do not chase. When someone criticizes, you listen without collapse. Your calm becomes confusing to those who expect reactivity. But over time, it becomes respected. People cannot manipulate what they cannot hook. Another marker of being socially untouchable is clarity of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are signals. Signals of self-respect, self-awareness, and emotional responsibility. When your boundaries are clear, you do not need to defend them aggressively. You simply live them. You say no without explanation. You disengage without hostility. You express needs without guilt. This clarity reduces friction. Others know where they stand with you. There is no guessing, no hidden tension, no unspoken resentment. Clarity feels safe. Untouchability also frees you from urgency. You stop rushing conversations. You stop forcing connection. You stop needing immediate resolution. You trust timing. You trust process. You trust yourself. This trust slows you down in the best way. You respond rather than react. You allow silence. You allow people to reveal themselves without interruption. In this space, insight deepens. You begin to see people more clearly, not as threats or rewards, but as humans navigating their own nervous systems. Compassion grows, but it does not weaken you. It strengthens you, because compassion without self-loss is power. Being socially untouchable does not mean nothing affects you. It means nothing owns you. You still feel disappointment. You still feel sadness. You still feel frustration. But these feelings move through you rather than defining you. You recover faster. You stabilize sooner. You remain present. And presence, sustained over time, becomes influence. Not forced influence. Not strategic influence, but natural influence. People listen to those who are not trying to control outcomes. They respect those who do not chase reactions. They feel drawn to those whose energy is consistent. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds connection. Connection builds influence. This is the quiet conclusion of social intelligence. You do not master others. You master your internal state. From that mastery, everything else flows. As this final chapter settles in, you may notice a sense of calm clarity. Not excitement, not intensity, but something steadier, something grounded. That is not detachment. That is integration. You have not become someone new. You have returned to a version of yourself that no longer reacts blindly. Social intelligence, at its highest level, is not about technique. It is about embodiment. It is about who you are when no one is watching and who you remain when everyone is. And when you reach that place, something becomes clear. You are no longer easily shaken, no longer easily pulled, no longer easily controlled. You move through social life with awareness, dignity, and quiet confidence. Not loud, not cold, not distant, just untouchable. As this audiobook comes to a close, there is nothing more you need to do, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to force. Everything you have listened to is already settling beneath conscious thought, organizing itself quietly, naturally, in the deeper layers of awareness where real change begins. Social intelligence was never meant to be memorized. It was meant to be embodied. You've explored how the social brain operates beneath awareness, why rejection feels threatening, how emotions spread silently, why status is quiet, how influence emerges from calm rather than pressure, and how true strength reveals itself under tension. But more importantly, you felt something shift, a slowing, a softening, a widening of perspective. This is not the excitement of learning something new. This is the calm of recognizing something true. You may notice that people feel different now. Conversations may feel slower. Reactions may feel less urgent. Situations that once pulled you emotionally may feel more spacious. This is not because the world has changed, it's because you are no longer reacting from the same place. Social intelligence is not about controlling others. It is about no longer being controlled. When you understand the forces beneath behavior, you stop personalizing reactions. You stop chasing validation. You stop engaging in emotional games you never agreed to play. You remain present, not detached. Not withdrawn, but grounded. And from that grounding, something powerful happens. You begin to listen more than you speak. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to influence without effort. Not because you are trying, but because your nervous system is no longer broadcasting urgency, fear, or need. This is the quiet mastery few people ever reach. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to explain it. It shows in your presence. It shows in your pace. It shows in how little you are shaken by external noise. As you rest now, allow this understanding to integrate gently. Let it move from thought into feeling, from feeling into habit, from habit into identity. There is nothing more to achieve in this moment. Just rest in clarity. If this audiobook resonated with you, if you felt moments of recognition, calm, or quiet clarity, then this message has already done its work. To support this channel and help others discover these teachings, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Sleep Success Audiobook. Each interaction helps this content reach those who are ready for it. If you feel called to engage more deeply, leave a comment below with the words, "I see people clearly now." Not for anyone else, but as a quiet declaration to yourself. And if you'd like to continue this journey, explore the other audiobooks on this channel. Each one is designed to guide you deeper into clarity, emotional mastery, inner strength, and lasting transformation gently while you rest. For now, allow your body to relax. Allow your breath to slow. Allow your mind to settle. You don't need to become someone else. You've simply remembered how to be steady. Sleep well, and carry this calm with you.